All right. Yeah, no, come on up. I'm sorry. Okay, here we go. Okay. Oh. Stop. Sorry. Good evening. Before we call the meeting to order, I would like to welcome forward Officer Nath, who's going to present an outstanding Kensington citizen with some well-deserved recognition. So, thank you, Officer Nath.
Thank you. Good evening. I just want to take a second to kind of recognize one of our younger citizens. He's a student at the Kensington school, the Hilltop School. And recently, we were dispatched to a call at the school where one of the other students unfortunately fell pretty severely and broke his hand. During the incident, the other young individual that was about 8-ish or so didn't speak any English. So when Officer Martinez and I arrived on scene, the biggest issue we were running into was being able to understand what had happened. And not being able to translate Mandarin ourselves, we had to rely on this young man to do that. The young individual, Ali, he stood there and was pretty steadfast in the fact of being a part of such a traumatic incident for this other young individual. He translated everything that we needed him to do, as well as once Engine 65 and fire arrived on scene, he continued to translate and get pertinent information that we needed to help assist this young man. The biggest part about it was when mom and dad of the injured child showed up, obviously mom and dad were a bit distraught and worried. The young man, Ali, ended up putting his hand over mom and dad and saying, "It's okay, he'll be fine, he'll be fine." And I think at that moment we realized that this young man did more than what you would expect of a young individual at his age to be such a humanitarian in that fact of making sure that mom and dad understood that he was going to be okay, making sure that we as first responders all received as much information that we needed. So I wanted to take a moment just to recognize him and let him know how much that the Kensington Police Department appreciates him, as well as I know the rest of the citizens, fire as well as AMR appreciate him too. So if I can call Ali up to the front, please. So what we're giving Ali is we wrote up a letter of recognition for him being an outstanding student as well as a citizen, helping his friend, helping his classmate, helping first responders, because obviously we wouldn't have been able to get the pertinent information as we needed if it wasn't for this young man being brave. We use the word hero a lot nowadays, and I think it gets kind of muddied in the essence of what it really is. And this young man definitely is a real hero by doing what he did. So we wanted to say thank you and we appreciate him. He's a little shy, so he doesn't really want to say something. But we thank you very much, and I appreciate you guys giving us a moment to kind of recognize him for it. Thank you.
In addition to the district celebrating this young man, the American Medical Response Ambulance Service sent an operations supervisor named David Malarkey to also celebrate and present the young man with a gift. But he ended up having to go to a call, so he couldn't stay. I advised I'd make an announcement that he was here, and he also wanted to celebrate this young man also.
Thank you, and in 10 years you can come back and interview and we'll give you a job. Okay? Consider it. Think about it. All right, I'm going to well, first let me say that fantastic children don't occur in a vacuum, so I think we should recognize his parents, who I think are here tonight, and tell them thank you from all of us. So. And I know that parents feel better knowing that your son is at Hilltop School, so. So I will call the Thursday, May 10th, 2018 meeting of the Kensington Police Protection and Community Services District Board of Directors meeting to order. I will take roll. Director Hassai?
Here.
Director Deppie?
Here.
Director Welsh?
Here.
Vice President Natoli?
Here.
I am Board President Rochelle Sherris-Watt, and we will now take public comments on items not appearing on the agenda. Please step up to the microphone.
Good evening. My name is Leslie Reckler. I live at 33 Edwin Drive, and in about 6 weeks, we will celebrate our 18th anniversary of living in Kensington. Goes really fast. I thank you all for your service, and it really is an amazing place to live. My volunteer passion is the West Contra Costa Unified School District. I started as a PTA president, and I am the incoming president of Bayside Council of PTAs. We're the umbrella organization that supports 30 PTAs and 2,800 students, members within West Contra Costa Unified School District. I also work on the LCAP committee and the Positive School Climate District Working Group, and I mentor new PTA units and make new parent leaders. I got involved because I never realized how threatened education was in California. I didn't know it until I put my own kid in school and was basically horrified at what I saw. We are 40th out of 50 in per pupil spending. And I want to thank this community for always supporting education, because whenever we've reached out to you, you've always responded with an overwhelming yes, and it has paid off. This school up here, 2 years ago, won a California Gold Ribbon. This year, it was awarded with a Distinguished School Award, a Blue Ribbon Award for closing achievement gaps. This is an extremely rare award, and I wanted to make sure that you knew that this school achieved it. And everything that you saw here with this child, that's what happens up there. It is a warm and caring community, and we are lucky to have it. Tonight, I am here to update you on something else that's going on in the West Contra Costa Unified School District that is important, and I wanted to make sure it came to your attention. The district is looking to move from at-large elections to trustee elections, where they take the district and they will cut it up into pieces and elect a representative to represent a specific area. The reason why the district is doing this is because they were served with a demand letter by an attorney by the name of Scott Rafferty, who claims that the district is in violation of the California Voting Rights Act and has a history of racially polarized voting. I would like to state for the record, we do not know if the district has racially polarized voting. We do not know if the district has racially polarized voting. A very careful legal and statistical analysis would need to be done to prove that. But at 30,000 feet, it doesn't look really good, because we have 3 white members, all that live in El Cerrito. So at 10,000 feet, it's not looking so good. And there is a body of case law which doesn't look favorably in the district's, it's not looking legally favorable. So the district is looking to move to trustee elections. What is very important right now is that very shortly, on May 16th, there will be maps that will have been drawn. And you can input on these maps and see what you think about them. And these maps are important because this will be who you vote for. I have no opinion about maps. There are certainly some rules. All the trustee districts have to be of equal size. You can't gerrymander. They talk about community interest, contiguity, looking at borders, both invisible borders and real borders, like maybe a highway, which would influence the way that maps are drawn. Some people have said that we should draw them to the high schools, high school attendance zones. I actually think that that's a little bit old-fashioned because the way schools are changing, if your kid likes middle college, then your kid's going to go to middle college and you won't have a trustee that represents your student. So I don't really know what the answer is there, but the important thing is that I know that the group is great, and the group can look at these maps and go, you know what, that line doesn't make sense and we need to move it. So I have papers that I'm going to hand out and submit into the public record, which has a timeline, and we're coming up quickly on some deadlines. And the deadlines are very quick because they're looking to put this on the November 2018 election ballot. And some of these deadlines are mandated by law, so this is like speeding right through. The next deadline is May 16th, which will be a public hearing on the draft maps, and another one on June 13th. And there is a tool on the district's website that you can go in and draw your own map of what you think a trustee area should look like. I logged in today. I'm going to go back and do the video to learn how to do it. It's not very easy. And I also have some frequently asked questions here that answer a lot of the questions. The most important one that was asked was, does this change where my child goes to school? And the answer is no. Your child stays in the same school. This is who you elect to be on the school board. So the way this is going to work is that they are going to put this to the voters in November 2018 and ask, do you want to move to district elections? What I'm hoping that you'll all consider is that the answer to that will be yes, and that we do our homework and we get some really good lines drawn that we're happy with. And the reason is because case law is not in our favor. No one has won. The California Voting Rights Act really errs on the side of the underserved, and we'll be looking at a humongous lawsuit if, I'm pretty sure we'll be looking at a humongous lawsuit if it does fail. So look at that. I also have some good links on the back. I have the district websites link, which explains everything. I have the demographic report. You must hire a demographer to get this done. And if you look at demographer slides, it kind of like lines out what they need to be looking for when they draw maps. And then I have two articles which I had to really debate whether I was going to include them, but I'm going to do it anyway because they do have bias, as you can tell from the title. Legalized extortion under the guise of democracy, chapters 1 and 2, but the information in these articles is factually correct, and he did actually a great job of outlining some of the steps that the district has to take and how this came about. Finally, I found a great slideshow, which was by an attorney's office, which is really for municipalities that may be faced with this and get the demand letter. And this slideshow is actually really great. It goes right through, this is what you do, this is all about the California Voting Rights Act, this is about district elections. So if anybody's interested, this is actually a great resource. And I'm gonna hand this into the public record and put the papers in the back, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Leslie. Any other public comments? Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Julie Stein, and I've lived in Kensington for a bit more than 27 years, first on Stratford Road and now on Ardmore. And I just have a couple of quick questions about the food composting survey, and I'm hoping that either you'll be able to answer them tonight or maybe in your staff reports. So first of all, I'd like to compliment Director Natoli. I think you did a really nice job with the survey. It was easy to take, and I got a real sense of confidence with the unique number that the results are going to be very well controlled for those who actually took the survey. And my question is about how things will look. What would the outcome of a yes vote look like? And this is where I just hope for a little clarification. So the website says Bayview will provide each resident with 1 or 2 65-gallon wheeled carts for yard trimmings and food waste. Wheeled carts are easy to move to the curb/street and minimize rodents getting to the food waste. Additional bags/containers of green waste will also be collected at no additional charge. So that actually seems pretty clear. But then the next sentence is, Bayview will also provide one 65-gallon wheeled cart for recyclables. So my first question is whether that means we would no longer have the unlimited recycling capacity that we have now on a weekly basis, or would we be limited to the one 65-gallon cart? And then my second question is just kind of what was raised by the idea of the 65-gallon carts, because right now we have 32-gallon carts, and I made the mistake one time of using a slightly larger garbage can, and Bayview told me that it was too heavy for their folks to lift, but it was nowhere near 65. And so it made me wonder if a yes vote on the survey would lead to an outcome of what I guess they call robo-cans, where they have the automated pickup service, and it's fairly well prescribed where you put your cans because the trucks themselves lift your cans into the truck. And I suppose the implication of that might be that this might eliminate some of the more flexible services that we receive right now, such as the Bayview folks coming into people's backyards or stepping off the street into the particular place where people currently put their garbage cans. I know not everybody does, but some people need that extra assistance. So anyway, I know you might not be able to respond right now during public comment, but again, the two questions are, would we continue to have unlimited recycling like we do now on a weekly basis? And does this mean we would be moving to the so-called robo-can type of service? Okay, thank you.
A. Stevens Dilk. I too want to talk about the food composting survey, which asks ratepayers when we want to start the service. A, next year with an additional 7% increase, or B, not until maybe 2021, which might mean a higher increase. A, with a set number, seems like the obvious answer to the quiz, but it almost certainly will cost more. We continue to pay the highest rates in Contra Costa, 17 to 61% higher than Orinda, Moraga, Lafayette, Danville, all of which already have food composting. We have been told for years that our service is more costly because many streets are too narrow for the trucks to mechanically pick up the large wheel carts. Now, as just been pointed out, now everyone will get two 65-gallon carts. We would not ask if there's any concern about how to get them up and down steep driveways or stairs or where to store them. One solution many will choose is to leave them on the sidewalk or easement 24/7. Not everybody has yard waste for pickup every week, but a sanitation law requires that food waste must be collected weekly, so the large green cart will have to go to the curb each week. Or to avoid the hassle, some residents may continue to dump food scraps in with garbage. We were advised to act quickly, or we may have to pay higher rates for organics that have to be trucked to a facility farther away. It is interesting that Bay City's refuge can drive across the bridge to Sausalito, pick up waste, including food scraps for composting, and return to Richmond for 10% less than its sister company Bayview Refuge charges us without food waste and for the shorter trip. It was not mentioned that in 2021, the district should be looking at what we do when the Bayview contract expires in 2023. Perhaps that board will be the first ever to send out RFPs seeking more economical service with food composting, of course. Lastly, we were told that China is no longer taking paper and plastic for reuse, which may mean we might not meet state requirements if these materials have to be sent to landfill. But based on tonnage reports, if all of our recyclables and all of our food waste were dumped in landfill next year, we would still be in compliance with the California diversion goal for 2020. A valid, compelling argument for providing food waste collection is an environmental one, to keep organics out of landfill and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. But that was never mentioned. And it is unfortunate that the survey seeking community input didn't ask if ratepayers wanted to add this service, just when we want the district to close the deal.
Thank you.
Good evening, Jim Watt. Seems like this is a favorite topic. For the last 30 years, I have been recycling my food household waste in an area set aside in my garden. There is no benefit to me in having Bayview pick up this food waste, only an added household cost of about $40 per year. However, the residential collection survey most of us received in the mail a few weeks ago went well beyond the issue of food waste pickup. It also restricted the number of yard trimming containers we can put out each week to 2 and requires all containers to be wheeled carts and delivered to the curb for pickup. It also restricted recyclable carts for paper and other products to 1 per week. All these factors will limit collection service as we presently know them. However, most surprising was that these surveys were being directed to Bayview for tabulation. Since it seems that that the new approach to collection service will be beneficial to Bayview, it makes no sense that they should be the ones tabulating the results. I also felt that the survey was written in a way that was biased in favor of recommending the conversion to recyclable food waste. It also appears that these changes could allow Bayview to sell its business to one of the large recycling companies. I certainly hope that this survey will not be used as the basis for incorporating a new pickup service for all Kensington when it contains so many unfavorable changes and extra costs.
Mabry Benson here. I want to make a point from the April 24th Matrix meeting. Among the statistics that were presented, I noted that our crime stats were the same when we had the low number of officers, 5 to 6 officers, as when we had 10 officers. And there's been a lot of comment that the reason we have such a low crime rate is because of the number of officers we have on staff, although I have maintained that the reason we have a low crime rate is we're not close to San Pablo Avenue. We have narrow, contorted streets that even residents can't find their way in and out of. That's our crime deterrent. And I noticed that a lot of people hadn't paid an awful lot of attention to the ad hoc report on police contracting. And I was a member of the contracting subcommittee. All the departments, particularly, well, including El Cerrito and Albany, that seemed to be probably the most reasonable, all the departments said we could have dedicated officers on a dedicated Kensington beat. There seemed to be the conclusion that our officers would be part of, would just never be around here, but all those departments could arrange a dedicated Kensington police, and they could assign officers dedicated to Kensington. Now, of course, that wouldn't preclude that between vacations and illnesses and that sort of thing that you can't necessarily control, we wouldn't get officers from outside, but on the whole, we would have officers that would be servicing Kensington and known to the Kensington residents. And I want to note that Lafayette and Orinda, who contract with the sheriff, have just this sort of arrangement, and they're happy with how this works out. So I'm confident that it could work out very well with the likes of El Cerrito and Albany. And I noted that one person worried that if we had a major event, and we're talking fire or earthquake, she said, well, we won't have any officers, they'll be tending to El Cerrito or Albany. However, even if they were our own officers, we probably wouldn't have them. Well, they'd be off, most of them are off duty, but all officers in an area will go to where they are most needed, and that's called triage. And the first point emphasized in any disaster preparedness is do not expect or count on public services. That would mean police and fire. Because I know we are all our most important item, but in reality, there's probably somebody who's going to be in more dire straits than you. Basically, you are on your own. So I wanted to correct those 2 points of what I consider misinformation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Paul Doro. Last night at the Kensington Fire Protection District Board meeting, there was some discussion among directors, excuse me, about a dialogue between the fire district and the community services district about possible alternative sites for the public safety building. The tenor of that discussion was that the fire board is kind of waiting for a resolution from the CSD as to whether or not any of this district's property could be considered as an alternative site. The reason I raise this here tonight is that at least what I gathered from the discussion among the directors of the fire district is that their progress towards reaching a decision about the future of the public safety building, stay where they are and fix it up, move somewhere else, is at a standstill because they're waiting to hear whether or not there is a somewhere else that this district owns to which they could take a look and say, does that fit, is it feasible, and could we work it out? So assuming that the thrust of what they were saying is that it's kind of bogged down here, I don't know if that's true, I'm just repeating my impression of what they said. I'd suggest that it would be a good idea to elevate the priority of that investigation because of the way our districts are jurisdictionally carved up. It's not really your problem what to do about the public safety building, but it's our problem. And so I think that has a fairly high priority. They need to get on with it. They need to make a decision about what to do. And if CSD property is not on the table, then that pretty much narrows the focus and lets them move forward. So I'd ask you to give some consideration to elevating the priority of that task.
Good evening. I'm Clark Kruger. I asked last month to have officer staffing on the agenda. And I think we have three big issues. And I'm trying to keep up, but I am not sure that I have a good feel on any of these three issues. And it's not only that I don't like to be ignored, but I think all three issues are very important to this district, and there ought to be some communication as to where we are on that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now we'll move to board and staff comments. Comments from board members? Oh, yes, you do. Go ahead.
I think it would be good for the board. Hello, I was told I was too loud once, so I'm sorry. Oh, is this okay? Thank you. I think it would be good for the board to adopt a more formal and comprehensive website policy. I get a lot of questions about posting, can we, can't we, and as we've explained, I really don't make the decisions, but it's not really a well-written down or well-known policy, so I think the board should adopt a formal policy, and I'd like to suggest that we ask staff, Anne, I think would be a good person, she could look into maybe some legal issues, to look into that and come back for the next meeting for a public agenda item where we can discuss it and possibly adopt the policy. I think it would not only clarify what we're doing, but it also serve as a guide for whoever maintains a website, because it can't be just one person doing it. So I think it would be good just for the future and for the public to know how we're really maintaining it. So if that would be okay. So I can't really make a resolution, but I suggest that we have an agenda item at the next meeting with the preparation from staff to come up with some concrete suggestions and examples.
All right, I'm not sure it will be the next meeting, but I promise.
Hopefully soon, yes.
Since we know staff's workload right now. But
Okay.
I want to mention a couple things. First, that the garbage survey is tentatively scheduled to be agendized on June 14th. It's only 10 days into the survey. And that surveys are acceptable. Either you may send them back to Bayview, or you may turn them into the public safety building. Or you can do it online. So they're and it's forwarded to the consultant, Eileen tells me. So there are three ways to which you can respond one time to the survey that was included in your Bayview invoice. So you have until May 31st, and then we will tally those results and discuss. And I want to assure everyone that there are no final decisions being made, even in June. We'll just start discussing the issue, and we have a lot of things to work out and go forward with. I'd like to mention that Director Deppie, who's our LAFCO representative, submitted our vote for our LAFCO representatives, and Igor Skardoff and Stan Caldwell were reelected. John Joya is having a candidate workshop for anyone interested in running for public office this fall. That will be Saturday, May 12th from 9 until 12:30, and you can find details at the supervisor's website. And the Kensington Carnival takes place this Saturday from 11 to 3. 11 to 3, and the KPD will be present to say hello. So stop by and it's up the hill at Hilltop School. There will be a meeting of the Finance Committee Wednesday, May 30th. Well, they will discuss the budget in its hopefully close to final form. So we'll be discussing that later on tonight. All right, are there any other board comments?
I just want to comment on the carnival for folks who haven't been in a while or don't go. There is also a plant sale there, and there is a kind of a white elephant garage sale, so it's not all just kids' carnival fun and games, and I really liked the idea of trying to knit the school community with the wider community, so if you do have time, and it's supposed to be a beautiful day, I think, and you need a plant or something that you might want to just rummage through the rummage sale, please stop by.
Only to note that we did have a community meeting on Saturday, April 28th, regarding police services that was extremely well attended, just like the one in March. And it will be up to the board in the future if we continue to having the community meetings and the format of the meetings, and also the date. I did receive some feedback about continuing to have them on Saturdays. There were some individuals that felt another day would work better. We should explore another day. I also want to note that police negotiations have been really slow recently. There have been a couple of family deaths involved that have slowed the process even more, but we hope to get this on track and get this completed in the near future.
Thank you. Chief Hull?
Good evening, everyone. I guess the first thing I'd like to announce is we have pins and magnets on the back table for anyone who does not or have not already received one of those items. There's a couple of things I would just like to cover. One of them is that we have established a platform on the Nixle application. I know that had been discussed in the past, and we're finally on the platform, and there's just a couple of more kinks that need to be worked out, and we can start having the residents sign up for that. There will be a media blitz to have that done, so look for the near future to participate in the Nixle. Also, I want to speak a word to recruiting. Currently, we have one person in background right now. I have received 2 applications last week that will be going forward through the background process. What I'm doing as the chief of police in order to facilitate the recruiting is mailing flyers out directly to police departments. And there is the California Police Chiefs Association website that I'm also going to put a job announcement onto so that can go out to other California police departments. Last but not least, I just want to mention the trucks that are parked on Grizzly Peak Boulevard. I'm in the process of working out an abatement process so that when we can remove those trucks, they'll be gone. In the past, we've towed the trucks, but they've come back and they've been moved to different parts in the city, simply creating another problem somewhere else that has not had a solution. On the course of establishing this process, somehow the owner of the vehicles had found out, and we met. We had a meeting. He explained to me what his perspective of the whole situation was. I explained to him clearly what my intentions were. And if he understands clearly what the goal is, he's going to try to move the trucks. I am still going to pursue the abatement process, whether he moves the trucks or not. So that process is in the works right now as I speak. So hopefully in the near future, that's another issue that will be resolved. And that's all that I...
Thank you. All right, I'll move on to new business. Item A. LAFCO is seeking nominees for appointment to the county's redevelopment agency oversight board. This is informational only except for my fellow board members. Should any of them have interest in being nominated, we have until May 30th, so please let me know as soon as possible so that we can agendize your nomination for the next meeting. Anybody want to jump up right now? Okay. All right. Any public comments regarding the LAFCO appointment? Okay. We'll move on to item B then, to discuss the administration of and use of Nixle. As Chief Hull mentioned, we are adapting Nixle for our own needs, and we've been running some test work. It's along the lines of, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? And we're getting there. And so what I would like with this item is to think about having one or two board members to work with both the general manager and interim chief of police so that we implement the system and to have a game plan for sharing our implementation with the community.
I will work on that. I'll be one person to do that.
If anyone else like to work with Sylvia, or are we going to? I'm happy to work in conjunction with you if you need someone else to check on the website and how it's working.
If it has to do with the website, I get it.
Well, not technically, it will not, how their website, I should
Right.
say, is being administered.
If Sylvia could take the lead, I'd help out. So
Okay.
Any technical, right.
And Chris would be a better person for that than I. Is there any other public comment? Sure.
Dave Spath. With regard to Nixle, do you envision it to be real-time? That is, if an incident happens, that incident will be broadcast on Nixle almost real-time and received by the public. And the reason I ask that is El Cerrito has Nixle, but they don't do it in real time. They provide a bi-weekly summation of activities on that type of a frequency, which frankly is useless in my mind. However, Berkeley, and I also subscribe to San Diego because that's where my son lives, they do real-time notification. So certainly, if that's your intent, then I certainly would applaud you for doing it that way. But I certainly would urge you not to follow El Cerrito's approach. Thank you.
That was my understanding when we adopted Nixle.
I was just having some of this discussion with Sergeant Burrell today as to how the infrastructure is going to be set up in order to input the information on that platform. To be frank, as I envision it, it will not be real-time 7 days a week. It will be real-time as long as one of the individuals who are going to be inputting the information is either on duty, or if the incident is severe enough, it'll be driving time from wherever we are into the station.
Ricky, so you have to be in the station to broadcast? You can't do it, like, for instance, you couldn't have a system at home where you could broadcast in an emergency?
I don't have the direct answer to that, but I would be hesitant. I'd be hesitant to be at home in order to input information on that platform that's going out to the public for this reason. These situations can be fluid, and there are elements to them that may be real by the time I get the information, but have changed by the time, which it would be no longer accurate by the time I enter it. Being a public information officer, I think it's critical that the information that we are putting out to the public regarding police department activities is accurate, and I wouldn't want to compromise that.
I think we have to distinguish what do we mean by real time. If we mean the minute a call comes in, it goes right out, I think what Chief Hull is saying is that may not be what we mean. But do we mean to be useful or of a severe enough emergency? To me, that means, yes, we don't wait a week later to send some incident. So I think we need to work these details out clearly, but I think it is useful and needs to be done in a reasonably quick fashion, but I understand what you're saying. Things do change, and sometimes even with a missing person, they sometimes wait a few hours if they've done a first search and they've done what they need to do. So each department has to make up this decision, but it's not going to be, I mean, my intention as a board member when we took that was not that it's a weekly digest. So between the minute a phone call comes in and a week, we need to come up with what the answer is.
We don't want yesterday's traffic today. We want to have it so that it's useful for you. So I think, thank you. Yeah.
Wanted to say, maybe we should take a look at how Berkeley administers their program, just to make sure we know all the options.
Slightly larger department, yeah.
I understand the dilemma that Chief Hull is describing. And I don't mean real time the second that occurs, but if something happens like a missing person, you get it out once you've identified the fact that it is a real problem, and then you get it out. It may be an hour later. And I think that's the way Berkeley works, that's the way San Diego works. And as I said, they have a much larger infrastructure to do that. But I think you can set up a structure that works well.
Just out of curiosity, does Albany have a Nixle system?
Not to my knowledge, but I can't say for sure.
I believe that they have just signed up, and so it's not yet administered. Yeah. UC Berkeley does. You can go on nixle.com and look for the different agencies. You can type in right now your zip code, and different agencies will appear. Ours will not be there yet, but it may come, well, 707, it's definitely in the 707. It'll be there, but you'll start, once we're fully rolled out, then it'll be for all the Kensington zip codes.
Madam President, I wanted to note that I'm a recent and new Nixle user and want to encourage the community and the people present to go ahead and sign up for Nixle. I really have been impressed with the information that I've been getting, and most of it has been very close in time to the incidents. Some of it is more informational, but it's a very impressive system, and if you haven't signed up, it's relatively easy to sign up, and I think as we gain experience, we'll improve on how we send out information and how quickly we do it.
All right, so thank you for volunteering. We'll move on to item C. We're going to review the proposed budget for fiscal year 2018-19. This budget first went to the Finance Committee on May 1st, and we have no substantive changes at this time, though we are well aware that there will be a few changes coming up. So, Tony, would you like to present a little bit of, just give an overview of the changes that we made? And
Yes, this is a different type of budget and a different format than what the district has used in the past. It's basically what we call a program budget, which divides the services by the programs that the district provides, and also describes them, and then includes accomplishments and objectives. So it includes a narrative, which was not included in the past. Now, this is the first time we've done this, and we can improve probably on our goals and how we list them. I would like to add measurable goals than just simply broad statements. It also includes a budget message at the beginning. If you'll note, there is a table of contents which summarizes the information, and the budget message includes what the general manager sees as the key issues facing the community in the next year. So we're all working with the same direction and the same objectives. And the ones that are listed in this budget message include the community center project, and you'll note also that there is a first draft effort to create an actual capital budget for the community center that's included in the document. The other key issue is the increased retirement and healthcare costs for retirees. A very controversial issue in terms of the amount of costs that have been going up in the last few years and are projected to continue in future years. This budget also includes a sheet for the GAN appropriations limit. You'll notice that it's blank, and we will fill it in as soon as we finalize the budget and have all the information, but it's a placekeeper at the current time. Another key issue, and it was raised a little earlier in tonight's meeting, is the public safety building. It does affect the district, and it is a topic that we need to discuss and coordinate with the fire district. The other topic listed is the public police services study, currently being in the early stages with Matrix. The study will be completed after the budget is adopted, so there will have to, whatever the direction of the board is at that time, will probably we need a budget amendment to implement the study, or the board would give staff direction on how to proceed. There's also an administrative study that hasn't been completed, and that will also probably need a budget amendment. When it is completed, it will be subject to the review of the board, and then there'll have to be a cost analysis related to it. And we've also included the policy and procedures manual, which, as most people who work with the district know, it's not in very good condition. Many sections are very out of date, and we actually have a small committee working to try to improve it and use the work of a previous board that also attempted to amend it and improve it. This is more of a goal for next fiscal year, but it is included in the budget message. This also includes some very simple pie charts. It's just simply revenues and expenditures. And it pictorially demonstrates what the revenues look like and what the expenditures look like. I like pie charts. They're found in most budgets. I'm a little bit of a visual person, so it gives me a kind of a quick look of how money is spent and what the revenues look like. So let's see. So we do have a revenue and expenditure summary. It's presented a little differently, but it's very similar to the information that's presented in the past. But it's we have these the two actual columns from 2 years prior, and then the budget for the current fiscal year, and then the proposed budget. So there's a comparison of 3 years, one to the budget and two actuals. So there's a time frame and a timeline. And then we get into the narrative section. It starts on page 11. Now, we included the police department, Parks and Recreation, district administration. So I've also have a page for solid waste management, and given the comments this evening, I think probably we should include that page. Although we don't have a separate budget for it, we do have a narrative for it, and we do have the goals for it. So probably in your next draft, we'll include that section. And in future budgets, I just wanted to note that you do have the option. These are really up to the board. What items do you want separated? You could, for example, include major issues in a separate type of separate listing. And major issues could include such things as legal costs, and that would provide a more detailed discussion of legal costs, and also tracking them over multiple years and breaking them out by each department or each service area that the district is responsible for. You can also include another one on technology, for example. Technology is throughout the district in various areas, and it's not centralized, and it's a little hard to track it sometimes. And in the budget, the budget is a planning document, and you could have a technology section. And another section you could have also, maybe not this year, but in future years, is a board of directors section. And you could have the board of directors goals and accomplishments and and you can list them for the community, and then the community can see them. Now, your goals really are included in these sections already, but you could have the option of having your own separate budget unit if you choose to. Also, in the future years, I think I'd like to go into a 2-year budget, so we budget for multiple years, not just for 1 year. Getting this much done really was more complicated than actually I expected. Kensington doesn't change very much year to year, so it's relatively easy to do a 2-year budget. And this is a non-growth budget. There's no major changes in the budget. This is just allocating costs and trying to separate them by the departments. Another area that I would like to look at in the future is a vehicle replacement plan. So there's actually a plan on when vehicles are replacement. This is really a police department subsection. And budget ahead for those, so there's funds available in the budget already when the vehicle is scheduled to be replaced. You probably also need a policy to go along with it. How many miles, how many costs, what are the criteria used to replace a vehicle? So when the criteria are met, then it's just simply the funds are already there in the budget, and it's already pre-planned. There is a capital project section that I mentioned earlier on page 18. It does include the community center, attempts to set the budget and show where the funds are coming from. This is, of course, we don't have an actual cost until we have bids that on the project. So these are just estimates, but they're reasonable estimates on information we have now. And it does show that the project requires an additional $350,000 plus, and so that to complete the project, those funds would have to be included either through debt or some other program. Page 19 shows the authorized staffing of the district. We really have not had a chart that had authorized staffing before it. I think there's been some confusion of filled positions and authorized positions. So it's this chart is just simply shows the staffing that's authorized. It doesn't necessarily show all the positions that are filled. They are subject, of course, to the board's approval and changes. But since the department, the police department, which is the largest unit, is undergoing a study, this is probably going to change significantly when that study is completed. It does include a master sergeant position, which is the current interim police chief held that position, but it is vacant, but it is shown as a budget unit in the budget. It also includes a corporal position, which is a position police departments usually have to allow some promotional opportunities for police officers, and also when there is an outstanding performer and the department doesn't want to necessarily lose them, they have some promotional opportunity that they can offer. And then we do have a couple of, at least one position that, it's, when you have 13 hundredths of a position, it's a little odd, so but when a position is split between two departments, we try to estimate it based on cost. So that's an estimate on cost. The general manager, which is shown as a half-time position, that's an approximation of the time I'm currently spending. And that is up to the board again also in terms of the future, is how much time you would want a general manager to serve, and is that sufficient time or is that too much time? But that's it's based on kind of my actual hours, I think. And then on page 20 is something, as they say in finance, something, and now for something completely different, is a 5-year financial forecast, which has never been included in the budget. And this is you notice it says preliminary draft. It's not even a draft, it's a preliminary draft, because of course we don't know what will happen in the future. The purpose of this document is for long-term financial planning. And it all depends on the assumptions that are used. So if you change the assumptions, the numbers change significantly. These assumptions mostly show a 3% to 5% growth rate, except for the retirement plan, which we estimated at 10% per year. It's a wild guess, but we can't be too conservative with those estimates.
Can I ask how you projected future revenue?
It was mostly at 3 to 3.5% based on estimates on property values, on property tax. We also have this available on a computer, so if we wanted to change the numbers, and we can present this to the board, if you felt that that was too pessimistic or too optimistic, we could change it to a larger or smaller number, and you can see the results of that. We try to be realistic. You know, one of the things with projections is you do not want to be too optimistic. That's a mistake. And on the other hand, you don't want to be too pessimistic, so you try to strike a balance in between and come up with real numbers. The bottom line on this projection with these types of assumptions shows that there is a balance, positive balance at the district, but it's a diminishing balance as the years go on, and that's something that needs to be observed. And it's also an advantage of having this type of tool available. And then we could also take these numbers, and Mr. Furman has a very sophisticated analysis that we could plug this information to and actually do some probability analysis on on the long term. But this kind of information is very helpful as a precursor to that. So I think that's basically. I wanted to acknowledge Bill Zanoni, who helped in developing the format and transferring the information from the financial documents to the budget. He's out of the country currently, but I wanted to acknowledge his good work on this, and also Debbie Russell's for the accuracy and completeness and responsiveness on getting that information in here. So with that, I think we're planning to present this at the end of May, and we're for consideration, or June possibly, and maybe after the Finance Committee meeting.
Yes, I think it will next go, we'll make the first round of changes, and it will go to the Finance Committee for approval, and then we'll be back in June 14th, I think, hopefully for our final approval.
I would just like to say this format is a vast improvement over what we've had before. Very good job.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, thank you. This was excellent work, and we really do appreciate your vision on this and bringing this forward. This is what you mentioned to us months ago, and it's really a lovely piece of work. I want to highlight a couple of things for folks that'll be changes this year. One of those is that we, for the first time, have put in an estimate of the COPS grants, item 415, excuse me, which is unusual. So it's not unusual, we've just never done it before. So this is a change. So mentally, don't be adding extra money. We have received more in the past, but we don't want to, we're comfortable estimating that we'll get $100,000, but we don't want to imagine.
What's the origin of that money?
It's the state. The state,
State?
yes.
Does it come from US DOJ first to the state, and the state gives out grants?
Yes.
That is something to keep an eye on, because things can be unpredictable.
They can, which is why in the past they've always said they're not comfortable putting in the budget until it's already received. But it's been clearly over this number of years, we've received it every year. So it seemed a little bit cat and mouse, and so they recommended that we just put it in the budget. There's a couple documents that aren't here yet. One of those will be our fund balances. I think currently we have 2.1 million unassigned fund balance. And the other document that I promised I would create will be a summation of each category so that you understand. In the old budget, you may remember, if you would see item 552, police supplies, and then often there were several notes about what that meant. And so I'm going to put together kind of a Dewey Decimal System or a listing of what each of those categories are for this breakdown, so that if we have questions, we can just reference that. So, comments from the board, questions? Public comment? Oh, the other thing I did want to mention is that you will notice that, excuse me, it'll take me a moment to find the line item, that we, for the first time,
You're in the appendix?
well, for the first time, I am looking for funding, we are funding the crossing guard. The West Contra Costa Unified School District has determined that they will not be funding the crossing guard. I guess years ago, we actually did pay for that, but they've decided that they're going to go in pursuit of increasing teacher salaries. And so they've asked that the district pick up that cost. And the general manager and I think that it's in the interest of public safety to keep it. Oh, is it?
That's 560, right? Across item 560?
I think so, yes.
So there's a 6,000 plus for this year, and then about almost double that for next year?
Yes.
Okay.
Last year, it was kind of a pass-through where we got reimbursed by the district. They will also not be, we've come to the end of the contract for police services at the school district, up at the school, so we will not be being reimbursed for hours.
That's a decision by the West Contra Costa Unified School District with all of their schools to end contracts. And as Rachel said, they've decided to put more money towards teacher salaries, so they've ended contracts with all their schools pretty much.
Yes, so that's page 10, item 411 and 413 in the past when we received revenue from those items, and then appear as expenses on page 13, 3 items down under other expenses. You'll see the crossing guard. So there's a couple of assumptions that are made that are not listed here, but you'll notice them, is that there was increases of 3.5% in salaries, which of course is subject to negotiation and things, but they assumed CPI and placed those. Go ahead.
I want to be clear too on salaries, this is only a budgeting, it isn't an approval of salaries. All salaries are subject to the approval of the board.
All right, if there are no, goodness, I'm giving everybody every opportunity.
Knew he couldn't pass up the opportunity.
I will say that the Finance Committee did not find any fault with this budget. No, it wasn't perfect, but.
Well, that's because we hadn't completed it. And that's what I wanted to just briefly mention to the board, is that what you have is not the complete budget that you have to see. And 2 days ago, we received the final version of those numbers, so they weren't available for tonight. So I just thought I'd mention them because I think you need to be aware of some of the things that are coming down the pike here. The important thing from my point of view is how much money we're going to have if we do all the things that we're talking about. That is what we call the unassigned fund balance. It's the amount of money that doesn't have restrictions placed to it. Typically, we've been running in the range of 1.2 to 1.5 million, in that range. And as we're going to be talking about tonight, we're going to presumably agree that we need to have the precaution of setting aside a certain sum of money that is, so to speak, unrestricted, and I think that's the next item on the agenda, which is $750,000. So basically, we have somewhere between $750,000 and whatever that number is as the amount of money that we have available to us. And so I thought I'd just kind of give you a preview on what came in 2 days ago from Debbie, is that we will have about $1.2 million at the end of 2018-19. And with the idea that we will not go below the $750,000, which you're going to be discussing next. But in that $1.2 million that we will have, we still have to find a total of $353,000 to meet the cost of fixing up this building. So unless somebody wants to donate generously, that might have to come out of these funds. Now, of course, we don't know what this building's going to cost. It could cost less, and it might cost more. But I just wanted to point out that if we meet the target that is being shown for this upgrade, which is $1,649,000, if that's what it comes in at, then we will push that unassigned reserve currently of $1.2 million down very close to that, right about $900,000. It's getting very close to that 750 that we just assumed not like to go below. So that's the only point I wanted to make, was that's what we'll probably be talking about at the meeting next month.
Well, we're still awaiting any kind of real solid number, and it will take estimates before we don't know whether or not we're going to need or want that $350,000 until we have some much more substantial evidence and figures back from a contracting firm, or hopefully several firms that will give us ideas. All right, so I'll move to the last document, which was the general fund reserve policy. I apologize for the poor copy, and what was missing in your copies is that you'll see in the second to last paragraph, it is the policy of the Board of Directors of the Kensington Police Protection and Community Services District to maintain a reserve fund balance of at least 25% of annual general fund operating expenditures. And that was highlighted in all the copies that went to the members of the Finance Committee, because that, along with a set of triggers that would start the consideration, attention of the board to the level of the general fund, need to be added to this document or approved. So we can decide what level of general fund reserves that we would like. It's actually based on a percentage, and Bill Zanoni suggested that we maintain between 20 and 30%. I think Tony recommends that too.
Definitely, that's most typically done in local government. Unfortunately, many local government units are unable to meet that goal.
And I have to tell you how thrilling it is to look at, even though it's diminishing, 5 years of non-deficit budgets. It's very exciting. Very exciting.
Well, it's better than the alternative.
Exactly. So if there are no comments regarding that 25%?
I just have a question.
Sure.
So GFOA recommends a minimum of 2 months of regular operating budget. And we're recommending, or this document has as a recommendation 25%. What's the difference in monetary value between those two?
Let me look at my calculator.
Okay.
Well, the difference, let me just say mathematically, the reason I would like the percentage better is that if we have fluctuations in our general fund balance, I mean, what we're bringing in, then it goes up with that. Whereas if we just, all right, let me look at that for a moment. I'll let you know.
Michelle, what is the, what kind of triggers would happen if we went below?
Well, that would be something the board could decide upon. So the first thing might be that if you get, at 30%, that the board would like to be notified, and then do we go into a series of hardship restrictions, or, it doesn't have to be laid out precisely, but we definitely want to have some kind of notification policy so that everyone's aware and that we're discussing it, because perhaps it's a one-time problem and that we are aware of it and we're willing, the board and the general manager are very comfortable with that, or perhaps it's a crisis, and so we need to be having that discussion.
But it's somewhat advisory. It's not like we have to do X, Y, or Z if it falls below. It's
No, I mean,
Only unless we vote in some kind of restriction.
exactly right, yeah.
It really is up to the board. It's your decision. I would tend to not make it advisory, however. Once you have a reserve policy, you really need to stay with it. You can have some mechanisms to go below that, but it would still have to come back to the board for approval.
I think it's roughly like this. Yeah.
so the answer to Eileen's question, which we both answered, she answered herself, is the difference between 2 months right now of our general fund operating revenue would be around $566,000, where if we went to 25%, it's closer to $800,000. So, the microphone. Thanks.
First of all, I want to make it absolutely clear I'm speaking as a resident this evening. I'm not here in staff capacity. My question is, given the length of time it would take to get a measure on the ballot, would the 25% provide us sufficient lead time? My understanding is that it can take up to 2 years to complete the process of getting a measure prepared, on the ballot, voted upon, and revenues received.
Well, but when we're talking about a reserve policy, we're not talking about having, hopefully, no income at all. Property taxes are continually received. And if we were in a situation at which we were receiving no income whatsoever, I think that, we would be in some serious crisis. There would be, we would be going to the county at that point, because 2 years' worth of operating expenses would mean we'd have a reserve of $6.5 million. Plus. So that's right now completely out of possibility for us.
It's not
So,
the purpose of the reserve policy to, give us 2 years.
Now, all these decisions are subject to the board. If the board decides to go to the voters, it's the board's decision. We're not recommending that at this time.
no, I think the question, though, was just, would we have enough time if our revenues, I think, fell so severely? But all reserve policy depends on the assumption that you are continuing to receive some sort of income through property tax, in our case, but that we have perhaps special needs that we're needing to hold a pot of money aside for. So, all right. If there are no other questions or comments, and I thank you all, you're all welcome, please, as the next month and a half go on, and you have questions or concerns about the budget, please email them or mention them to us, because we will be making changes. And I will make a motion that we adjourn this meeting. The next meeting will be held on Thursday, May 24th.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye. All right, the motion passes 5-0. Have a good evening. Safe weekend.